freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Farmers Insurance Open. Joining me to break it all down, I've got him. It is Greg DuCharme. He's here. Hello, Gregory.
Yes. I can't wait for this one. Rick, we got ourselves a great golf course. And I think one of my favorite aspects of this event, it's possible that more need to adopt a similar strategy. And that is the Wednesday to Saturday playing of the Farmers Insurance Open. I think it's been a pretty big hit over the last, what is this, the fourth year they've done it?
That sounds right.
And it's also on the West Coast. So for me, I mean, I know for you, it finishes right in the middle of happy hour, but for me over here on the East Coast, it's prime time Saturday night live at Torrey Pines. So this is a pretty cool week.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad you mentioned it because this is the reminder. This tournament starts on Wednesday. So if you are entering contests thinking, all right, I'll swing back Wednesday night to get those lineups in and get everything situated, you are too late. You will be locked out because this tournament runs Wednesday to Saturday. They don't want to battle conference championship Sunday in the NFL. I think that's great. And like you said, Greg, it gets you a Saturday night finish on, a West Coast golf course that, the architect guys don't like it, but you can't beat the views.
No, the views are spectacular. There's a lot of questions you could bring up with the architecture if you wanted to, but I do think that there's plenty of evidence that shows this is a great test for the best players in the world. It's a great test for PGA Tour players. You have to be accurate off the tee. When we get into the golf course, there's a couple of really interesting facets here, but I do believe that it tests all facets of the game. Maybe there's too much similarity between holes. Yes, that's possible. But aside from that, I think it really does test every area of your game, and you're going to have to be really sharp this week to win.
Okay, well, listen, we do have two different golf courses to be played at Torrey Pines. So we're going to do a 2-round course rotation. Josh, if you want to fire up my screen, I've got the scorecards here. I've got the stats here. We'll go through this a little bit. So the South course, Greg, that's the host course. That is where they hold the U.S. Open, where Tiger beat Rocco Mediate, that one. That's what you're thinking of at Torrey Pines. It is going to be the harder golf course. The North course, however, will be used in the first 2 rounds. So every player in the field will play 1 round at the South course, 1 round at the North course, and then a 36-hole cut to get us back to the South course for the final 2 rounds. If you're looking at it statistically, the South course plays about even par, maybe a hair over par, or it did last year. The North course will be a couple of shots easier, most likely. Last year was about 2.5 strokes is what did the trick.
It's about, for the last 4 years or 5 years at least, the South course has played over par. And it's one of the most difficult golf courses on the PGA Tour. In those last 5 seasons, it's been in the top 15 most difficult golf courses on the PGA Tour. And I would include it as, non-major, probably the hardest test that they face. Now, the 2-course rotation is pretty interesting. If you look back at the last 5 or 6 winners, they've all shot 69 or better on the North course. But with the exception of Patrick Reed, who shot 64 in 2021 on the North course, and Justin Rose, who shot 63 on the North course. They all of these winners. So this is now the last 6 winners. The other 4 have all shot around that's better on the South course. So because you play 3 rounds on the South course, you're going to have to handle this golf course. You can't make all your hay on the North course and just kind of squeak by with an even par round. You're going to have to go make some birdies and play some pretty solid golf on the South course anyway. So much of my attention, much of my focus for this week, as far as analyzing this field, is related to the South course.
Patrick Reed won this event. I don't remember that. Was there anything controversial on that one, or was it just?
Oh, that's doubtful. I mean, it's so long ago, who could remember? But I'm sure it was smooth sailing.
I'm sure it was. It always is when it comes to Patrick Reed. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about this. So 7,700 yards on the scorecard for the South Course. Plays as a par 72. It is long. The fairway is kind of like that 25 to 30 yards wide, and they're going to have that rough at about 4 inches, Greg, when the week starts. They probably won't touch it throughout the rest of the week. So you're going to see guys who are, a yard off the fairway. They're going to be in that thick stuff trying to extract themselves.
Yes. And that happens quite frequently. And now I believe this is the driving on this golf course is fascinating when you look at some of the analytics. And if you look at the page on rickrungood.com, the course key stats, scroll up a little bit if you would, Rick, before we get there. So if you go, right up here to this graphic here, if you're watching on YouTube, you see things like longest drives, club head speed, going for the green, driving distance, all drives, right? These are all distance statistics. Okay, so distance is important. Distance over here on the right-hand side, 16th most important. If I'm reading that right, 16th most important for any golf course on the PGA Tour.
Correct.
Now, if you scroll down to where you were before, right here, every single hole rewards accuracy over distance.
Yep.
That's fascinating to me. So what does that mean? Well, you got to be long and you got to be straight.
you got to be long, you got to be straight. And that says to me that it's hard. If you miss the fairway, you're in trouble. And it's also difficult to hit a lot of these fairways. So and also when you look at the gap between the penalty for missing the fairway or the reward for hitting a long drive, some of them are pretty big, but some of them are kind of on the smaller side. What it says to me is that this is just a very difficult driving golf course, right?
It's a very difficult driving golf course.
And you can do it kind of different ways, right? We Patrick Reed was kind of hit the fairway, miss the green, get up and down for par. And we've seen guys kind of be able to do that because, like you said, Greg, the South Course plays over par the last handful of years. That par is often a good score, especially when you start making the turn and start getting to those like 10, 11, 12, 13. So to me, this is a very rare course profile. I would put this on the extreme side of things. It's a very difficult driving test.
Yes. Now, difficult for everybody. So now back up here, one of the things that really stands out to me is club head speed.
Yes.
That's different than distance.
It is.
And the advantage with club head speed is when you do miss a fairway, which you will. Everybody's going to miss these fairways. Club head speed becomes very important in getting your ball out of the rough. So I think that distance is my preference, although ultimately so many guys, I was looking at your cheat sheet on distance, like who are the longest guys in this field, and Ludvig is like somewhere in the, it's not a very impressive number when you look at it. If you sort it by distance, he was like 29th or something, 27th. There he is, 27th. So he's obviously plenty long. They're long hitters. Tony Finau is like 72nd. And the point of this is most of the players in this field are long enough to handle it. It's almost not a separator. You will be hitting a lot of drivers. That leads me to the next really important point here. Because you're going to miss fairways, you're also going to miss a lot of greens. Even if you hit fairways, you'll miss a lot of greens. And so when I look at and handicap this golf course, I'm looking for ultimately long hitters with good short games. You are going to have to grind in a week like this, and I think that there are a lot of players that are capable of this. But I'm thinking of the Patrick Reeds, the Justin Rose, Mark Leishman won here. He only hit 3 fairways in the final round when he won here. The Max Homa even, they're grinders. And the ability to get up and down, the ability to scramble from a variety of different lies will be extremely important this week. It's scrambling is something I'm putting a lot of emphasis on here at the South Course.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Well, I'm too excited to wait any longer. I want to start naming some names here. I want to talk about Ludvig. I want to talk about the rest of this field, and we are going to do just that after a quick word, Josh, from our partners. And we're back. This is the cheat sheet on my website, rickrungood.com. There are 4 golfers over $10,000. I will note there was a rash of WDs kind of like over the weekend and then into Monday. Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele. Those guys never made it into the field. Akshay Bhatia did make it into the field on DraftKings before he withdrew. He was in the 8,500-ish range. I've removed him, but just wanted to point that out before we get too far. Here's the 10K range, Greg. Ludvig Åberg leads the way, $10,800. Hideki Matsuyama, $10,007. Tony Finau, $10,200, and Sung Jae Im, $10,000 even. I kind of feel like one of those names doesn't fit. It's Tony Finau, but his record around this place has been pretty stout.
And that's probably why he's in this conversation. He's kind of the guy, in my opinion, that, like you said, doesn't necessarily fit, but he is coming off of back-to-back top 10s here. He missed the cut in 2022, but before that, his record was phenomenal as well. It was 5 straight years inside the top 13. And aside from that missed cut, he's never finished outside the top 25. That goes all the way back to 2015. So this is a great golf course for Tony Finau, and probably why he's in the $10,000 range. But going back to something that Patrick alluded to on Sunday, we've got some issues with his knee potentially. Potentially it's a little rust, and we haven't seen the same ball striking machine that we typically do out of Tony Finau. So I'm going to take that course history. I'm going to put it aside and just kind of wait and see on Tony Finau. I'm not going to play him this week.
Yeah. For a guy who is very long, he has been losing strokes off the tee in not only 4 straight, if you count the President's Cup, but 7 out of, what would that be, 9? It's not a great sign when that's one of your strengths and it's gone away, plus the fact he is really struggling on the putting surfaces. Okay, so that's Tony Finau, 10,200. It leaves us with 3 other guys here, Greg, in the 10K range.
I'm willing when it comes to Sung Jae Im. I'm definitely willing to overlook the missed cut last week. I think that was one round that he wishes he could press restart on, and I think it skews the stats. So if you wanted to go Sung Jae, I think I'd be okay with that. I don't like where he fits in the price. That's the problem here. I would much rather pay up and get the 2 players that I believe are the blue chip players in this field, Ludvig Åberg and Hideki Matsuyama, or go down to the 9K range, which I think is loaded with possibilities as well. When it comes to Ludvig and Hideki, quite frankly, Rick, I'm having a really hard time deciphering between these 2. You got Ludvig up there?
I do. Here's Ludi.
Yeah. So just starting with Ludvig, we mentioned it's a really tough driving course. This is one of the best drivers of the ball on the PGA Tour. One of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour. And even in kind of this, the playoffs and into the fall, he had some events where he didn't hit it great with his irons and is still just racking up top 10 finishes in that period of time. So this is a player that's just extremely strong. And I could see as this young career progresses, this being one of the very best venues for him.
Well, so played here one time, Greg, his maiden voyage. It was a T9 last year.
Yeah. It bodes well for him. He's got a lot of tools in the toolbox, and he can kind of rely on all of them. So I love Ludvig, but it's so hard for me to turn away from Hideki Matsuyama, especially when I talk about the importance of short game and scrambling. He was the best short game player on the PGA Tour last year. He won 2 starts ago at the Century. He's driving the ball very well. A lot of one-handed finishes we've seen from him the last couple of weeks, and they're all ending up in the fairway. So I love what he has going on off the tee. His iron play is as stout as it's ever been. Again, one of the best short games out on the PGA Tour. It's really hard for me to turn away from Hideki this week.
What if I made you? What if I said you have to play either Ludvig or Hideki, and I can't let you off the hook without an answer?
Well, ultimately, Rick, this is what happens when it's time to click the buttons.
Right.
So it's a fair question, even though I don't like it. I don't like it at all, because that means that I have to leave one of these guys off.
Yeah, it does.
I think I would go with Hideki narrowly.
Yeah.
Right, like how do you refute it? But then again, if I said Ludvig, how do you refute?
I wouldn't have refuted that one either.
Yeah, so what I mean, flip a coin. Maybe you build the rest of your lineup and see if you have 10-8 or 10-7
I think the separator is, and I like what you said about the around the green play, like the short game. I do think that you've got to be. I don't think you get a lot of really difficult spots. You get some difficult spots here, but you just get a lot of spots because you do miss a lot of greens, and I think that adds up.
I think so too.
If you're just constantly having to make 4, 5, 6 footers for par, that grinds on you. And if Hideki is only having to make 2 and 3 and 4 footers for par, now maybe he misses, but you know what I mean? Like I think that's the thing I like a little bit better.
Yeah. And again, it is minor. It's very minor. But look at Hideki's course history here.
I know.
Now, there's some since the North Course was renovated. That was in 2016, but the first time they played it was 2017. He hasn't missed a cut. He also has gained strokes around the green every single year here, going back to 2017. Yeah, sometimes 3 strokes. He's hit the ball well. He's done everything really well. You only have 2 top 10s, but only 2 missed cuts in 2015, 2016.
He's also playing high-end golf right now.
But yeah, he's playing better than he probably was then. So there's a lot to like. I'll stick with my answer.
All right,
it's really tight.
I could talk you into Ludvig so easily right now.
Yeah.
The 9K range, there are 6 golfers here. So it's Keegan Bradley leading the way at 9,900, Max Grazerman 97, Will Zalatoris is 95, Jason Day, Sahith Theegala, and Shane Lowry, who I feel like I haven't said his name in quite some time, round out this 9K range, Greg. So interesting. We've had Keegan Bradley has had a close call at victory here. Will Zalatoris was in a playoff here. Jason Day has dominated here. What's the route we want to
go? Hardest range to make decisions in this whole bracket, because these guys really, there's an argument to be made for all of them. So I want to start with a question for you, Rick. Is this price too high for Will Zalatoris?
Well, it's interesting because has he done anything substantially more impressive than Max Homa in the last couple of months?
You put on 20 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've both been okay. And I think they've both been worse than what we would expect, but I do think they're both trending in the right direction. So I tend to agree with you. I'm a buyer of Max Homa, who we can talk about later. He's $8,600, but we have Will Zalatoris is being priced as if he is, quote, back. And I'm Not. I'm close. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, it feels like, a buddy of mine last week asked me what I thought of Will Zalatoris. And I said, I'm very optimistic long term. I don't like him in a tournament like the American Express. I like him next week at the Farmers, right? Keep that in mind, which was an interesting conversation because he ends up finishing tied 12th. And now I'm in this position where, I like Will Zalatoris for this golf course, but 9,500 feels a little high, especially when you have Keegan Bradley, like you said, who's had close calls here, who's hitting the ball beautifully, who, he's one of the top guys when it comes to the course fit in your model there.
Yeah.
I love what Keegan Bradley is doing. Max Grazerman is extremely long off the tee, driving it great, putting the absolute eyes out of it and showing that even his iron play is going in the right direction. Jason Day is a guy to focus in on here because last week he didn't putt great according to him and according to the statistics.
Correct.
I thought he could have been a little more aggressive with his iron play, but he hit a ton of greens and he kind of padded some stats with his iron play. And I think that bodes really well on a golf course like this. We know how good his short game can be. He was driving it on a string last week. I mean, Jason Day looks like the play here. So it just pinches Will Zalatoris a little bit.
Jason Day will probably be a lot of my one and done selections for this week, just because like you said, he picks up 7 strokes from tee to green last week. Remember, only 2 measured rounds last week. So that's 3.5 per round at the stadium course, by the way. Loses a stroke and a half putting, but all of that and then some came on Sunday, and his history. So he's playing well, and then his history is unmatched here. 2 victories, a bunch of other top 10 finishes. So I find it difficult to play someone like Will Zalatoris when for $200 cheaper I can get Jason Day. You talk about the putting, the short game, the experience, all of that stuff. I think Max Grazerman is like. I don't think he's I got to be careful here. I don't think he's like a superstar in the making, but this dude has a stat profile unlike any other stat profile on the PGA Tour. He is ridiculously good off the tee. He's ridiculously good with the putter. He's good enough in the other areas. And since the US Open, which by the way was 7 months ago, he's been phenomenal and he's been piling up top 7 finishes. I'm sorry. Am I not seeing this guy who's like making a run up the OWG? I love this guy.
I keep thinking that there's too much. He's leaning too much on the putter, right? Because I look at it, it's like, this is ridiculous. It goes back to since the Scottish Open, he's gained strokes in every single event that he's played in, and significantly.
Yep.
Like possibly 10.
Yeah.
But he also has that off the tee arsenal that
he's gained in dating back to the John Deere in all but 2 starts. He's gained from tee to green, and he's one of the best putters on the PGA Tour.
Yes. Now, why hasn't he won? Well, he should have won, but he's got 3 seconds at a 4th and tied 7th last week.
Yeah, he puked one up, but he's been knocking on the door constantly.
So it's hard for me to turn away to go early on Will Zalatoris. I am a little worried. See, the greens at Torrey Pines are, I think, an underrated aspect, and I don't always know how to deal with it. Like, you get a really good putter, like a blue chip putter, which Grazerman's fitting that mold beautifully. Denny McCarthy would fit that mold. Jason Day probably fits that mold, and maybe he's the answer right there. But can you do that on these greens that they eat players up inside of 5 feet? Some of the most difficult greens to hold putts inside of 5 feet. They miss more than any other in that 4 to 8 foot range, so to speak. So can he keep up the putting performance on greens like this? Can he handle the bad bounce where one lips out because you got to bounce off a bump? The answer is probably yes. So
I've only got 19 rounds on him on Poana, and he's gaining like a half stroke per round, which would be pretty sick. Jason Day is also very high on this list, as you can imagine. He's got 3 times as many rounds. Yeah, you see a lot of good putters here, Taylor Montgomery and SH Kim and stuff like that.
Right. Those are generally good putters.
Yeah.
Or California kids.
Yes, there's a lot of West Coast guys. Maverick, McNealy. There's a lot of West Coast guys on here.
Right. Thigala.
Yeah.
Which
makes
Homa.
sense. Yeah. Okay,
that's interesting. I got one more guy in this range.
Sure.
That I'm very curious to get your thoughts on. And that's Shane Lowry. Yeah. 9,000 flat. This guy's been a stripe show since the Tour Championship. Go back even far since the BMW Championship. He hasn't finished outside the top 13. Now, a lot of these plays have been on the European Tour. Almost all of them have been on the European Tour, but he is clearly flushing it right now.
Yeah. +6, +4, +5, +6 on approach in his last 4. All of them are DP World Tour events, but they're big ones. It's interesting. You know, he was probably the guy I was thinking the least about. His history here is like, it's fine. It's whatever. It goes. I mean, he played in 2024, T25, and then he hadn't played here since 2018. So I don't even know how much you want to take into account any of this, quite frankly.
Well, that tells me that he can play here.
Yeah.
He can handle it.
God, this is a really difficult range then.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You could Thigala, you could play it just about any week, and I wouldn't be upset at you for doing it. I could never get them right, but they're all playable. So I think ultimately my favorites would be. Now I got to leave Keegan out. What I mean,
I know.
Grazerman, Day, Lowry.
Yeah.
Price included.
Honorable mention Keegan. And then we just have to hold our thumbs and hope that Will or Sahith don't beat us.
Have you played any of the PGA Tour fantasy game?
I have.
So there's no pricing in that.
Correct.
You just pick 6 guys.
You can only use each guy 3 times per segment.
I would play Will Zalatoris in that game.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I think I did. I made my lineup earlier. Why would you say that?
Well, there's no price. So our thought of 95 maybe too high. Like you're not leaving any. You could play all these guys if you wanted to. So you don't have to leave one out for him, so to speak. And I think there's fewer courses in this segment that fit him better.
Yeah. So this is what I did. I do have Zalatoris, but I don't have. I was thinking if he plays well. I have him on my bench. If he plays well, move him in the second round. I captained Max Homa, and then I'm going with Ludvig, McNealy, Jason Day, and then I've got Zalatoris on the bench.
So, all right. Well, you answered the Ludvig and Hideki question, I guess, right here.
Yeah, I went with Ludvig. But I think I've already used. But honestly, though, I think I've already used Hideki twice. I think I used him at the Century
in Hawaii,
and I think I used. Yeah, I think I used him at both places. So yeah, I think that was part of the reasoning as well.
But I think that's what I'm going to do is not play Will Zalatoris in any games with pricing, but that's the format where Will Zalatoris makes my lineups.
All right. I like that. Now, speaking of some of these other names, there are 10 players in the 8K range with Maverick McNealy at the top, Taylor Pendrith, Kurt Kitayama, Max Homa at 86, Luke Clanton, fresh off his missed cut, $8,500, Siwoo, Aaron Rai, Ben Griffin, and Bo Hostler and Harry Hall. I have already shown you that I really like Maverick McNealy. I really like Max Homa. I am interested to see what people do with Luke Clanton off the missed cut, Greg, and if that shine has worn off. But what do you see when you look at this 8K range?
Well, let's go right to Max Homa because I'm with you. I only wrote down 3 guys in this range, but I think there's more you can play. I kind of felt bad because the 9K I made no decisions. So I wrote down 3 names. One of them's Max Homa. And the area that I'd really like to focus in on is what has happened in these last 3 starts. I'm not including TGL in that.
No, you can overlook that.
All
Just
right.
look past that.
So it really, what he's done off the tee goes back even into the last 2 rounds of the BMW Championship. But since then, he's gained strokes off the tee every single week. Okay, that was a massive problem for him at the end of last year that I do believe he's resolved. So I feel very confident about that. I feel pretty confident about his iron play as well. And so now all of a sudden we're starting to see a Max Homa profile that looks like Max Homa. Now it's a shorter sample size. It's 3 events. He played well at the President's Cup too, and that could maybe just add into the evidence bank. But these last 3 events have looked like Max Homa. What's been missing is the putter. Well, that's the game we play with Max Homa. If he putts well, he does well, because the ball striking's so reliable. I feel like we're in a place where that ball striking's reliable again. As you just showed, he likes to putt on Poa annua greens. I think Max Homa at 8,600 is an all-day play.
Yeah, you don't need to convince me. I was looking through, and also this feels like so we're about to never get an $8,600 Max Homa for a long time. You know, he's gonna play well here. He's gonna be over 9K. He's been trending up to begin with, and then he kind of gets back into that run where he's just always in that second tier. And I think that there is no reason not to be buying in here. I think it's a very reasonable price. Obviously, a very good golf course for him. Yeah, I'm in on Homa.
So
and I captained him in my fantasy team, so I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I think that's a wise play. I also think Maverick McNealy, who you have in here, is a wise play. I love what he's been doing off the tee lately. I love the improvement that he's made with his iron play. Maybe the Sony Open didn't quite give you that performance. And if you look at his results here, they're okay. Only 1 missed cut. A lot of top 30 finishes. His best finish is a 15th. Top 40 finishes, I should say. He's putted really well here. And his ball striking, quite frankly, has been kind of underperforming. And I just think it's a whole lot better now. So I think there's a real chance that Maverick McNealy puts it all together in a week like this and contends on the West Coast.
Somebody's going to rattle off like this event, and then like Maverick McNealy could conceivably. Now I'm not giving him 3 wins here, but like play well this week, play well at Pebble, which we know he always does. They might come back here in a couple of weeks for Riviera. Like you might get some West Coast guy who just snaps off like 3 podium finishes at these 3 events and just like starts their year off with a bang.
Well, according to you, he's gonna come back to the Farmers,
yeah,
right?
According to me, and I am the decision maker. The sources say, I know. I believe that they will. I would just like the confirmation to come out soon.
Yeah, the sooner the better for you at this point, because your name's flying around all over the place.
I know, I hate it. I hate it.
All right, I got in this range. There's 2 players that I'm between, a little lower on the totem pole here. One of them at 8,300 is Aaron Rai, who we saw play at the Century. We saw play at the Hero. We haven't seen a whole lot of him, but I'm just thinking back to that, preference off the tee being accuracy.
Yeah.
And this guy's as reliable as it gets when it comes to the accuracy. And if you look at short game statistics, one of them that I'm very keen on this week is scrambling overall. Now, this in the stats page on your on the Holy Grail is for a whole season. It's a pretty wide sample size.
Yes, it is.
And Aaron Rai is 30th on the PGA Tour, right? So he's in the top category in this field for scrambling, like 60, almost 64%. So really, really good stuff from him in that category. You combine that with his steadiness, tee to green. I think it could be a great fit.
I was trying to remember because I saw him. It must have been this 2022 event. He was in the mix. Yeah. So I believe he was in one of the final groups on Sunday at Torrey. It was 2022. I remember following that group. He had just a very average final round. He ended up finishing T6, but he's never missed a cut here. He did not play the US Open when it was held here. So those are the only 3 results that he has. And I agree with you. The Wyndham Championship victory was overlooked by Grazerman coughing it up and Kuchar making everybody come back on Monday.
Yes. It's a great point.
He has continued to play very solid golf since then. And I'm with you. This is for a ball striker like him, this would be a pretty good spot.
Now, my toil is what we've seen out of Ben Griffin.
Oh man, this guy, talk about guys that I have no idea what to do with.
Yeah, but you look like, why not? Why I have no idea. Tied 22nd at the Zozo, tied 24th at the Worldwide Technology, 8th in Bermuda, tied 15th at the RSM, tied 45th at the Sony, tied 7th at the American Express, gaining strokes off the tee and approaching the green in all of those. Around the green and all of those.
The problem is this would I would just have to admit that Ben Griffin's like a very, very good golfer.
You don't want to jump that hurdle. So
right.
that's what we talk about with the tee to green stuff. And then look at scrambling all year last year, 23rd on the PGA Tour. And that's last year all the way up to now. Ahead of Aaron Rai in that category. Inside the top 10 in this field and scrambling. It doesn't feel like this should be a Ben Griffin kind of golf course, but the data says it is.
Yeah, he's been really good, Greg. He's been really good.
Maybe because I've kind of been like betting again, like I had him losing a matchup last week. I'm like, he got lucky.
Yeah,
I don't think he did.
He hold out a couple of times, but that doesn't really account for like the 23 other birdies that he made throughout the week.
He's been great. So I have a hard time, but I think one of those guys, Rye or Griffin in the lower 8K, is a really good option too.
Yeah. Was there anybody else here? Were those the 3 that we needed to get to? Okay.
Yep. I guess it's really 4.
Really 4. All right. Well, we've got plenty of work to do because we need to get down into the lower ranges here, 7,000 and 6K. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
And we're back with 43 golfers in the 7K range. JJ Spaun, Thomas Dietrich, Steven Jaeger towards the top. The middle of the range, Fishburne, Rogers, a pair of Patricks. The bottom of the range, that'll get you Joe Highsmith, Henrik Norlander, Jacob Bridgman, etc., etc. Like I said, Greg, over 40 guys here. I've got a couple of them checked off to discuss. Where do you want to go first?
Yeah, first of all, I do think there's a pretty big fall off here. When we're looking 10, 9, 8, there's not a whole lot of guys that we're saying no to. You kind of have your preferences you can play with up there. But we get down here and you got to start taking some chances, in my opinion. I looked through the whole top half of the 7K range and I wasn't really moved by anything. So getting down into some of the lower ranges here, the second half of this, I think there are some options I find pretty interesting. One of them is Patrick Fishburne. We've seen an uptick in his performance, and he missed the cut at the American Express last week. I think this could be a really good spot for him with all of his distance, shot making ability with his irons. I don't think his short game is great. I don't think it's terrible either. I'm very curious to see how he handles this golf course.
Yeah, much different than the American Express, of course. And before that, it was a T6 at the Sony, T8 at the RSM going back to last year. He is $7,500. I can't resist to throw out my guy, Nicholas Norgard here. Massive. Moves the ball like big time bomber, very good putter. I am worried, Greg, because he is coming from Dubai, where he just finished T4, by the way. Remember that event that Terrell Hatton won, that Rory McIlroy was in contention? Yeah, well, that one. Norgard finished 4th. He's coming from Dubai on a short week. That's like playing on, Sunday and then having to play a Thursday game in London.
I think that a player who's played the DP World Tour for a long time, well, I don't know if it's been a long time, but, a while, is at least able to handle travel. The big question is, a lot of the work that he's done on the DP World Tour has been with some exceptional putting. I mean, Max Grazerman like putting.
Well, it's actually very similar to Max Grazerman. Off the tee and putting are like the two strengths, and the rest of it, there are concerns, but
yeah. But
I think
he's 7,600.
He's 7,600, and I like him kind of more like he's got a tour card. He was one of the guys who got it from the DP World Tour, so I think he's probably over here for some time now. So I'm interested to see kind of what the next couple of months looks like for him.
Yeah, could be a good spot. I have a hard time with your DP World Tour players coming over, like assessing where they really are. Not that it means no, because look, last year, Nikolai Højgaard, I think, was runner-up here. Played some very good golf here, so it certainly, and Matthew Pavone won the thing, so right. it could definitely be done. I like the call.
All right, where else we going next?
Very, very impressed with Alex Smalley lately. He's also he's 7,300. What he's done the last 2 weeks at the Sony and American Express, his last 2 starts, it's been all the way across the board, really strong performances. His driving game has been great, going back all season last year. Once you get into April, at least, he started driving it really well. And I think he's got pretty high upside in all other areas of the game as well.
This, one of the things that we talk about a little bit, we don't see it frequently, but when a guy gains throughout the bag multiple times in a row, that is one of the best indicators of future success, or like immediate future success. So that's what he's done at the Sony Open and the American Express. It's a little bit different because that's only the 2 measured rounds, but he dominated the stadium course in the process of that 11th place finish. So that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be when I clicked his name.
Now, Jake Knapp last year, wasn't the Farmers the 3rd event in a row where he gained across the board? Or was it it might have been the 2nd.
No,
but anyway,
it was, I don't remember now.
Then he won a couple weeks later.
Yes.
In Mexico, but he did finish tied 3rd here.
Yes, he did.
I'm totally with you there. We talked about him a little bit last night, Rick, briefly. Could this be a Taylor Moore week?
I'm so glad you brought him up. How much is he?
7,300.
This dude, I mean, he had a lost year in 2024. He was miserable, but 2023 he won, and what I was so impressed with his game all year long, and it looks like he's starting to get out of that major slump. I don't know if anything has happened, but he's now driving it well. He's picked up strokes off the tee in 6 straight measure. The putter's coming back. I mean, this I love this guy's game. I'm glad you brought him up. I don't know where he's at, but it's definitely way better than it was last year.
In 2023, year that he won, he did finish tied 11th here. He missed the cut in 22 and tied 70th last year in 2024. But as you mentioned, he wasn't really playing well. So I'm very curious about that. Could potentially take a chance on it. All right, I got 2 more in the 7K range.
Okay.
7,200. Tristan Lawrence, talking about your European Tour, DP World Tour guys coming over. I'm not very impressed with his recent play, but it was also, kind of a long. He missed the cut at the Dubai Desert Classic, but he didn't play before that since the Alfred Dunhill. So there was a little bit of time off, a couple of weeks off there. I just think his game should be a really good fit. He has a great short game, and he's very long off the tee, and he plays aggressive.
Yes.
I'm
he's
excited
like
to see his game transfer over.
Yeah. When you said I want long guys with good short games, like here he is, and he's $7,200.
Yeah. So right, and because the recent form isn't great, that's I might look away, but because it's 7,200, I may also take a chance on it.
Anybody else?
Yes, one more. 7,100. Kevin Yu. This is another very interesting combo. Now, he won in October at the Sanderson Farms, but a very good driver of the golf ball. Very strong pedigree from Arizona State. Played well here last year. And it's, I believe that just this combination of short game and length off the tee and general driving ability. He's very accurate too. I think this could be a nice spot for him.
He is the type of golfer that when he plays well is like, might be standing on the podium by the time he's a missed cut risk, but he, especially when you start comparing him to his peers who are priced in the same spot, runs circles around the chances of winning compared to Jackson Coyven, Carson Young, Max McGreevy. Like, he is that high level upside golfer.
Would you call that win equity?
I would call it win equity. That is right.
All right. That's all I got in the 7K range.
Frankie Sappin until something happens.
He's great.
$100. He's unbelievable. All right. 6K range. We've got Joseph Bramlett, EVR, Chan Kim, and a few others at 6,900. 6,500. That'll get you Brant Snedeker, Taylor Montgomery. And then who is mid-price for this week? Willie Mack, Aaron Baddeley, Peter Malnati, the fall from grace from our Valspar champion. $6,000 and a handful of others. Greg, could you find me a few diamonds in the rough?
These are weak. Like, you're going to hear a couple of names and extremely weak analysis on them.
I love it.
All right. I don't, there was really nothing. I was clicking through this. Normally there's something I'm like, that's worth the risk. I'm looking here like, how am I going to explain myself?
Yeah, it's one thing to just write it down, but it's like, how am I going to explain this?
What am I actually going to say? So let's start off. It's just terrible reasoning. 6,700 Grayson Sig. Now, he played some pretty good golf in the fall. He had 3 events in a row, the Black Desert, Shriners, and Bermuda, where he finished top 25 in all of those. He also finished tied 4th at the Pro Tour. So there was some pretty good golf in the fall for a period of time. It was pretty ugly for a lot of the season last year. The real reason that I even considered it is he's 4th in this field in scrambling. And so in desperation of finding a name, that's my reason. There's been a little bit of good golf lately. Well, somewhat lately, and a pretty good scrambling metric.
Okay. I will give you someone with little analysis to go with it. It's Joseph Bramlett, 6,900. This has been low bar, probably the best event of his career. So he's got 5 made cuts in a row. 3 of them are top 25s. He is the club head speed guy. He is the driving distance guy. His results as of late, he did miss the cut in the Bahamas on the Corn Ferry, but they've been like 21st to 50th for the last couple of starts prior to that. And while he is a very bad putter, he always seems to putt well here. So I'm giving Joseph Bramlett another crack.
See, that's good reasoning, Rick, because I'm looking at this and I see Luke List.
Yes. Correct.
Right, who happened to win here in 2022.
He did.
But what threw me off was, he's playing in Q school. He's playing in a Korn Ferry Tour event on the PGA Tour. You know why? Something's wrong. But I like your reasoning.
Listen, he's been okay.
Yeah, he's been hitting it really well.
Yeah, and he plays well here, so we'll give it a shot.
All right. I just don't like any of this. But what about Alejandro Tosti?
He played better last week, didn't he? Was it last week that I'm thinking of?
Where is he, like 60?
Yeah, where is he, Greg?
I wrote his name down. I want to say he's like
64.
64. Yeah, taking it deep. So again, one thing that I like about this is the price. Okay, I like 6,400 because there are so many 9, 10, 8K guys that I want to work into this lineup. You feel like you need something down. You need to take a chance somewhere to get as many of those guys in there as you want. And I just love his driving ability. I love his length. I love his club head speed. You know, maybe he could put something together like we saw at the Shriners or at Q School where he pops up. So
yes, I was thinking he got off to a hot start last week. That's what I was thinking. I remember seeing his name at the top of the leaderboard. Faded a little bit over the final 3, but like you said, drives it really well. And when it's clicking and everything's lined up, it's a very, very good high end or high finish option. Anybody else? These guys stink, Greg.
They stink. and it's going to be full. I mean, Chandler Phillips's name came up on a lot of the little metrics I looked at. I don't like anything about it. Ben Silverman's name came up quite a bit when I was looking at, I believe it was, some short game stuff. He was 18th on the PGA Tour in scrambling, which is like 5th in this field. So that one, I don't know where he's priced though. Ben Silverman. I think he's like middle. There he is, 6,500. So I probably would go with Tosti over Silverman. It does seem like Joseph Bramlett is the best 6K play.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Paul Peterson's okay. I think Brian Campbell is a Korn Ferry guy, just kind of getting his feet underneath him is okay, but definitely removes the option of playing 2 10K guys because of how.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you could guess. Like, could you go with Chris Gotterup?
Yeah, you could just. I mean, like
club head speed.
Yeah, some of these guys are going to finish inside the top 15 or whatever, but I don't know who they are.
Right, and it's hard to. You're going to be surprised, and everybody's going to be surprised. Are you going to get lucky, or are you just donating one? So I'm not extremely comfortable. Maybe this is a 9-8-7 kind of build.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you can't play Sam Ryder because he hasn't been the same since Armina didn't let him use the workout machine at Torrey Pines when he was in the lead on Saturday. So he hasn't.
I've never heard that story.
Okay, that story is this. So that Hilton there is where everybody stays, and we were staying at the Hilton one year, the year that Sam Ryder. Remember they interviewed his mom like on the 15th hole or whatever. Like she's like, "Oh, I'm here to see his first PGA Tour win," and then he ends up losing it. So on like Sunday morning, we're in the gym, and there's some guys in there, and he's in there, and she's using a machine, and he asks if she's done with it. And she's like, "No, like I've got a couple more sets or whatever." And he goes and does his other thing, and then she's finally done. I'm like, that guy's like leading the golf tournament right now. And you're like messing up his flow and you're not letting him do his, and he, doesn't win on Sunday. He's never the same.
It's her fault.
I agree. I remind her every time he comes on TV. I'm like, you ruined this guy's career.
Yeah. But she should say, well, look at me.
Yeah. Look how jacked I am.
I'm yoked here.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let Sam Ryder get in my way for some golf tournament.
Yeah, I was just like the guy who's like leading right now, not just like the guy who's like going out first. I was
not
just
a
so
player,
hilarious. Right? So hilarious.
That's a great story.
Yeah, that was fun. We are back on Tuesday for the mega preview, and then remember, because the PGA Tour is adjusted this week, so are we. So that means our halfway recap show will be on Thursday, and our full-time recap show will be Saturday this week.
Awesome.
Whew. That's going to mess me up.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be fun.
Set your reminders. Rick, it's no different than flying to another country and being in a different time zone. Okay.
Oh, okay. No
You
different.
can handle it. Just different days.
I will figure it out. It usually takes me a couple days to figure it out, though. I don't have a couple days to figure it out.
No, you're getting right into it.
All right. We will be back Tuesday. We will see you then. Until then, producer Josh, thank you very much. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg DuCharme at The Real GFD. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.